Hi guys, and welcome to our session today, where I'm going to show you guys that thing right there that we have over on the slide. What I really want to focus on today is a certain module of Adobe Connect. Now, a lot of you guys, as you're answering my polling questions all the way down there, do you have the events module and what kind of events are you guys running, is a module not a lot of people know about. A lot of people identify Adobe Connect as what you're looking at right now, a live web conference or a live virtual classroom or a live meeting that you can do. Now, the events module is something that you can tie into anything inside of Adobe Connect. It can become a self-registration page for your on-demand trainings. So if you have the training module, it is a perfect tool for that. It's something that what we're doing today, we have all of you guys registering for this webinar here. We could push you right through that events module inside of Adobe Connect and get all of the different bells and whistles to automate the entire process for us. So I'm going to say goodbye on webcam, unless the webcam is on the next layout, which I believe it is. So I'm going to say goodbye by pausing my webcam here. And I want to ask you guys that question right there. What kind of online events do you or would you like to hold? Now, I can see across the board here, we have everything from webinars, training webinars, new hire webinars. So webinars is like the buzzword that I see right here from all of you guys in the room. Now, webinars is, again, a really flexible term because you can use webinars a lot of different ways, and we see it right here. Some of you guys want to do training webinars, probably for your new hire staff. Some of you might want to do just external training webinars, educating the public or other agencies around some of the topics that you guys hold valuable to you. And that is exactly everything that you can do through Adobe Connect. Now, if you draw your attention all the way to the top of the screen, you'll see kind of a list of 6 different types of events that you can run inside of Adobe Connect. We have everything from webinars, case in point, case study, exactly what we're doing right now. Virtual trainings, kind of what we're doing right now. I'm going to train you guys on how to use some of the best practice tips and tricks of Adobe Connect. Even virtual workshops. Now, virtual workshops, and let me use my little pointer tool here so you guys can see the different points that I'm making, are great because inside of an Adobe Connect room, if you guys didn't know this already, you can actually have breakouts. So if you're doing a workshop and you want to break people out into kind of smaller groups to brainstorm and collaborate, that's something that you can do in a seminar room, virtual classroom, or meeting room inside of Adobe Connect. Now, another one, and this is actually something that I've worked on before, is virtual summits. Everyone goes, well, how can I do a virtual summit inside of Adobe Connect? Well, it's incorporating a couple of the other features inside of the room. Breakouts become your vendor or your meeting sessions. Your lobby or the session you're in currently is kind of your main stage where you can broadcast everything out, hook into any other audio systems, video systems, and broadcast out live events to a virtual audience. And everything else from online roundtables, webcam pods are great for this because there is an unlimited number of webcams there, and any other online registration event. I don't know what is up with my spelling today, even my speech, so I will try and not mix up my words like I just did there. So again, thank you guys for voting on this polling question. I can see a lot in here, and I do appreciate you guys filling this out. Ooh, I think there was actually an interesting one. I saw coding in there, virtual coding lessons. So Andrea, that's actually a really cool aspect of Adobe Connect there. So if you're doing something interesting with that, let us know in that Q&A pod. We would love to get some tips and tricks from you on how you might be doing that with the Adobe Connect platform. Now, what I want to take you guys through right now is what makes Adobe Connect's events module the best. So what I'll typically do here is I will go about and I will share my screen. Now, what you're going to see on my screen right now is a part of the events module that we'll get back to in a little bit. One of the first topics that I like to go over when we talk about webinars and we talk about events is real-time engagement metrics. Now, a lot of you might not know this about the Adobe Connect itself. It actually tracks the engagement of your users inside of one of your Adobe Connect rooms. Now, right now, I've got about, let's see, let's take a look at our numbers. I'm getting triple digits here, so there's a lot of you guys in this room. Right now, I know how all of you guys are engaged with my session. I know if you're actively participating with me and filling out these polling questions and downloading any files if we have them available and even asking me questions, but I also know if any of you are not doing any of this. Now, the reason I know how all of this exists and how I get my engagement metrics is right here from one of my Adobe Connect rooms. Now, I've got one up as an example here. This was one I was using for Hurricane Matthew as kind of a first response room. But right in this area. Now, if you're new to Connect or have never seen this, this is actually known as our backstage area, and it can be turned on at any time from your Meetings tab up here in the top left. Now, in this backstage area lives this pod right here called the Engagement Dashboard. Now, this Engagement Dashboard looks at each one of you as an audience member and goes, all right, how frequently is Bill, Brenda, or Brett, sorry, I had to list off your 3 names inside of the room, how frequently are they interacting with me? Well, are they downloading files from a file share pod? Are they linking out to my resources for my web links pod? It takes a look at everything that you as an audience member can interact with and measures my overall engagement of my audience. I can see it right here. I'm at about a 20%. Now, for people who have big egos, this is actually sometimes can hurt your ego a little bit. If you're doing a big webinar and you just see that needle in the red, but as soon as it bumps up like that, 70%, I know I'm doing good. I know I'm engaging with my audience. And it's actually kind of a give and take. You can really use this as a way to go, hey, I'm doing a lot of lecture. Let's mix things up a little bit. Maybe throw in a chat pod and then engage with your audience that way so you can get the hands on the keyboard and have that one-to-many experience feel like a one-to-one experience. Now, not only do we get this with our Adobe Connect rooms, I can actually see from my attendees list right here individual engagement. So I can actually see each individual user right here and what their engagement level is. So I can see next to this person's name, well, I'm the only person in the room, I'm green, I'm actively engaged, but I'll also know in real time when they drop to yellow and then red, and then I can easily call them out. So right now, if I wanted to, although probably would be a longer list to call people out here, I could see each of you individually and know which ones of you are actually in the webinar and which ones of you are actually on your emails right now. Now, the next thing I want to talk about here is campaign tracking IDs. Now, this is another really big thing because we're going to be spending a lot of effort into promoting our events. We might be promoting it through social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, all of those social media avenues because a lot of agencies do that nowadays. I might do email campaigns. I might be working with partner agencies, and I want to know which partners are actually the most effective in promoting my own events. So I can actually do something called a campaign tracking ID. Now right here under your events in the back-end portal of Adobe Connect, there's a page where I can create any number of campaign IDs. Now what I do is after I build my event, I basically go through and go, all right, I want to run a social media campaign. And let's say I want to run a partner social media campaign, and I want to do some newsletter and email follow-up campaigns. I want to see which of these campaigns is the most effective, where I get my biggest ROI on all of this. Well, when I click this button right here, I get Generate URLs. This will actually give me a unique URL to post in each of those different locations. Now, when someone clicks on it and makes it through my registration process, I know exactly where they came from, and I can pull metrics afterwards to go, oh, well, my email campaign was phenomenal. Word of the day, phenomenal. I got a lot of registrants from that, where my social media campaign maybe got me 1 or 2 people, and then I can go, well, we either need to up our efforts in social media promotion or we need to nix it and find a new avenue to promote our events. So it's a great way to really optimize all of the events that you have going on simply by being able to create these IDs and track where your users are coming from. Now I can see I've got a couple questions in here. How do you know that we are not engaged? Is it dependent on the actions we take, such as writing in the chat, pods, and polls? Actually, that is a great question, kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier. Yes, it's basically when I'm in a room and you are in this room with me, it's looking at you as an audience member, as an individual, and it goes, how frequently are you chatting, responding to polling questions, whiteboarding, all of that. And I believe the actual measure of it is every 60 to 90 seconds. So it's within that range right there. But we have white papers on this. So if you are interested in how engagement tracking works, we have an entire, I believe it's called Rules of Engagement, that we can send you that shows you how Adobe Connect actually tracks engagement inside of the room. And if you are blown away by the engagement feature, I've got a report for you that we'll show you in a little bit. Now, the other thing that you can actually do with not only just promoting your events is completely automating the emails that the system sends out. And this is actually something I really like because if you've ever been on a call with me before or you've ever done a training with me before, I apologize. I am terrible at email follow-ups, which is probably why I love Connect so much, because right here, there's an email options. Now, this email options basically allows me to go down a list and check all of the emails that I want the system to send out. So I can have it send everything out from the initial invitation. Hey, guys, you're invited to my event. I can then have it send out any of my notices. You're pending for my event. You're waiting approval to come there. You're approved for my event. Welcome. Here's the link to log into my event. And then denied, the saddest of the three. You are not allowed to come to my event. You can actually have automated approval into the system, so you don't actually have to deny anyone. But there are rare cases where I will use that. But then we have everything after the initial registration, which is the reminder emails. I can actually send reminders out when something updates in the system. I change the speaker. I change the time of the event. I can actually have an email triggered to be sent out for that. Or just remind people closer to the event. I could have this page set up and ready to go a month before I'm actually going to be doing this webinar. Well, I want to remind you maybe 2 and 24 hours before the actual event, just so you don't forget to attend my event right here. And then finally, my favorite ones, because again, I'm terrible with follow-ups, is the follow-ups. There are absentee and thank you follow-up emails. And it actually looks at all of the data in the system. It goes, hey, did Cliff actually attend this event? If he did, we'll send him a thank you email. If he didn't, send him the follow-up email. And all of these emails are completely customizable. So if you don't like the way that the system actually sets them up for you, click on this Customize button right here and customize it however you want. Customize when it's sent out to, who the reply to is. So if you have a specific person who's going to be owning those replies, you can actually set that for them right there. You can add Outlook calendar iCals to these so they can actually add it to their calendar. And all of the text that you're going to see in that email can be edited right here. So you can simply just edit that text there. But there is another way, and we'll talk about it in a little bit when we talk about templates, where I can completely change the look and feel of the template that you'll see down here. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Now I've got another question coming in. Lita, so it doesn't know if you're looking at Facebook or another page. Engagement track, I knew that was going to be one of the big ones inside the room. So back to engagement tracking. Lita asks, so it doesn't know if you're looking at Facebook or another page. It does. It knows if you are actively off the Connect window. So it will know if you are actively on another window or on Connect, but it doesn't tell me what you're on. It doesn't go into that much data. It's not going to tell me, oh, I've got, let me go down the list because I've been calling on my A, Bs, and Cs. It doesn't tell me if Janet or James here are actually on a different program. It will just let me know that they are not actively in Connect. Now, with all of that, we actually have integration to a couple of other Adobe tools. Now, people will see this all the time. They'll go, well, Adobe is kind of a big company. Don't they integrate their tools together? And the answer to that is yes. We actually integrate with the Events module with 2 other tools. We integrate with SiteCat and Adobe Experience Manager, or AEM for short. Now, with those 2 tools, I get additional reporting tied to all of my events, but I also get customization around my event itself. And that's what I want to show you guys right now, is all of the customization that you can apply to these events. So what an event is actually this right here. It's an entire microsite to your webinar, your training, your virtual code academy, as Andrea was denoting earlier in what she uses Adobe Connect for, or wishes she uses Adobe Connect for. And it is a 3-page microsite that Adobe builds for you. Right here is the first page in the overall microsite. It is the landing page here. Now, this is my upfront promotion. This is what's going to be sent out in all of those different emails. This is what's going to drive people's to register for the event, and this is what I'm going to be linking to on social media or any of those other avenues that I'm going to be advertising on. So this first page right here allows me to inform my users about my topic and also about my speaker. So for me, I forget what I was doing, but I decided the Canadian Railway was the most interesting topic that day. So I built an entire webinar for new hire training for the Canadian National Railway, because surprise, surprise, it actually runs all the way down to Mexico, which I did not know about. So something that you could learn on my webcast here if you attend it. But this page right here is all of the upfront information. Now, if you're interested in it and want to know more, there's actually another page to this. So maybe you're sold on the topic, you're not sold on the speaker. Well, over here's a little bio for me, and you can actually learn a little bit more about me on the next page in this microsite. Here I am. I've got my cheesy headshot over here that I took for work, and my fake bio here, so do not think that this is any real bios around me. But again, speakers actually can be a selling point for a lot of your webinars. You might not want to hear me talk about the Canadian Railway, but if I had Neil deGrasse Tyson come in and talk about the Canadian National Railway, you guys might even sign up alone just to hear Neil deGrasse Tyson actually talk here. So if you are sold on an event here, you can actually click Event Registration, and that will take you to a page in which you can register to attend this event, and that's actually where it puts us through that approval process. I can ask you any registration questions up front that I want. I can keep it pretty simple and just go, give me an email address and your first and last name, and that's all I require. But I can actually customize all of the different registration questions that I can put here. I can put anything from, hey, who are you? Where do I get in contact with you afterwards? What are some of your prerequisites? What's your employee ID number? I can completely customize this registration page right here. Now I do see, I'm going to try and keep an eye on these questions. Can you tell if someone is taking screenshots or recording video? Again, back to engagement again. So unfortunately, no. There is no way of knowing if while you're running a webinar, if someone is taking screenshots or recording a video of the room. So there's no way to do that. So I do, unfortunately, don't have any measures of that inside of the room there. Now, with this 3-page microsite that we've built here, a lot of people look at it and go, well, I've never built a website before, so how am I supposed to put this all together? Well, that's the beauty of Adobe Connect. If all of you, and it seemed like most of you actually have the events the meeting module inside of Connect, you guys know it's actually a really simple way of creating those individual rooms. You go in, you fill out a form, and you have a room created, and then you can go in and customize that room as you need to. Events is the exact same way. Basically, what it is it's a web form that you fill out. You basically run down this list, provide the information that you want Connect to fill into that template, and it builds that microsite for you. So again, like everything inside of Connect, it has its own custom URL that will link to it. But as we were looking at that landing page, you'll see right here, the title of my event. That's going to be what I put in right here. Now that detailed information box that you saw towards the bottom of that first page, all I did was copy that information into this box right here, and it fills it into that web page for me. So again, Connect is actually generating all of this information for me into kind of a own little personalized microsite that we can customize. There's a lot of other settings that you can implement to it. One that I actually really like, but unfortunately have not had a chance to fully utilize yet, is the register with social profiles. This is an interesting one, and what it is very similar to is all of us have a smartphone. Probably there might be a few of you in the room who don't have a smartphone. But basically, you've probably downloaded an app before on your smartphone, and it always requires you to create a login. But it also gives you the option to go, hey, sign in with Facebook. Make signing in so much easier. This is the exact same thing. If you don't want to have to fill out that registration form, remember a new login, a new password, you can actually sign up with Facebook or Google+, or your Google account, let's say. This now allows you to just remember that same thing that you type into your computer every single day, instead of trying to remember a new email address and a new password for that. So again, pretty cool. Something that you don't actually have to turn on, but if you do have a lot of public users or a lot of users that use social media, might be a great way to get them to register for your events. We also have a lot of other settings that can be implemented around the events. Right here is actually something called an events catalog. So we talked about earlier different types of promotions that you can use to promote your event. Social media, email blast, partner campaigns there. But one that I really like and relate back to something that I used to use all the time is college course catalogs, trying to figure out the courses I wanted to take. Connect actually has something similar to that in the whole microsite ecosystem. And that's actually this right here. It is an events catalog page. Now, you don't have to do anything besides check that box for this to be built for you. What it does is it takes all of your public events and lists it out, so you can then promote all of these events in one location. Now, this page can be embedded into your website, can be linked out to, and can actually be filtered down. Right here, this is actually Adobe's site where they promote all of their Connect trainings, or some of the trainings that they do. If you wanted to learn just about the daily demos that they run, you can click on this button. It filters that list down. Or if you want to learn about their on-demand webinars, over here, well, unfortunately, they have no upcoming events. You want to learn about their live training, this is now going to filter that list to all of the upcoming live trainings that they're doing. So this is another great way in that upfront promotion to let users know exactly what you're going to be offering in a nice self-discovery way. Now, as we go down, all of the images that you are seeing throughout the event itself are just placed inside of each of these locations. So that big banner image up here at the top, I simply just searched my computer, loaded that into this box, and Connect just bumps that up there for me. Same with all of the speaker information. It's basically second verse, same as the first. You fill in the boxes, give it a little logo, and then it's placed on those pages for you guys. And that's really all you have to do in creating this microsite, is simply going in here, filling out a form, as well as going in and creating custom registration questions. Unfortunately, it logged me out, so I'll quickly log back in here. All right, there we go. So just to kind of reiterate, since we were on the whole creation of those pages there, registration questions are actually something that are even easier to create. They give you all of these registration questions up front, and they're the basic ones that most companies, agencies will always look for is the, hey, who are you and how am I going to get in contact with you afterwards? But sometimes you want more specific, customizable registration questions. So down here, I do have a customize button that allows me to create new multiple choice, short answer, yes or no type questions. But again, you can get really creative, really specific with these types of questions. So here, I'm asking them for their employee ID number. This is a new hire training. They've been onboarded, and we need to get them up to speed for some of the stuff that we're doing. So I'm going to ask them this to just double authenticate, verify who they are. But then right here, I actually have the option to choose the validation type for this registration question. So here I can actually go, give me numbers. I know all employee ID numbers are just numbers. So now if they don't format their response correctly, well, they're not coming to my webinar. They absolutely have to give me this information in the way that I require it. And I could even make it a required response. If you neglect to fill in this box, you can't register. You have to fill in the blocks if you want to come to my event. And you can actually customize all of your questions like this. Now, Lindsay asks, we've used the events module before, but it's very time-consuming to fill out all the information on multiple pages, set up multiple emails. Is there a way to enter generic information once rather than to enter it multiple times? Lindsay, that is an amazing question, and you could just be my segue person for the rest of the event here. Because a lot of people do come to me and ask me that. They go, it's a great tool, but I'm filling out 7 pages every time I want to run an event. And a lot of my events are very similar. How can I just create a generic template? Well, all you need to do there, Lindsay, and everyone else who's run into that same problem here, is when you click on this checkbox after you create one event, up here there's a duplicate event option. It copies everything. It copies all of the information. It copies the room it's tied to, and it basically just asks you to create a new name for it, give it a new custom URL, and pick a new date and time for it. Everything else is copied over. Now, it's not set in stone, so after you copy it, if you need to make changes and just update the speaker or update the information, that's all you need to go in and change. But for me and the events that I run, I actually just go in and do this. It's a huge time-saving measure because I think if we go back here, I have finished events that I've built multiple copies of, and all I'm doing is duplicating those events. So that is a quick and easy way, Lindsay, where you can make a template out of it and just dupe it and then make the appropriate changes as you need to. What is the alphanumeric? What if it's alphanumeric? What are the available options? Ooh, that's a tricky one because under registration questions, I don't believe, unfortunately, if there's an alphanumeric, you might just have to require text there, and that will basically allow them to create an alphanumeric one. Now, that's not to say Adobe won't add that later. These are just the current options that you have for limiting those questions. So when we do say that, it's always something on the roadmap, and that can always be something that can be added in a future point update there. Now, I've shown you guys all of this right here, how to build these landing sites very quickly, kind of a very high-level overview, to get to one point in particular. This page right here is the basic template. Adobe builds this for you, but a lot of people go, well, I'm pretty creative. Why don't I just make it my own? And that's actually what I wanted to get to with the integration with other Adobe tools. Each of these landing pages right here, let's get to my event page, has a template that it's based off of. Now this template has different placeholders and can have different information inside of it. Now what I've gone ahead and done is I've built my own template. And I want to show you guys briefly how you can edit it and add in your own information to it. So when it launches open, it won't look the way that it did before. Instead of seeing that banner image up there at the top, you're actually seeing the system's placeholder. And instead of seeing all of the information in my images, you're actually just seeing the placeholders that the system has. And this is how it pulls in the information and builds these web pages for you. Again, a very simple process. But if I wanted to, I can add in additional elements using the tools that are integrated with Adobe Connect. Over here, this is our CQ5 window, which is just a small portion of the AEM tool inside of Adobe. Now, if I wanted to add in maybe an additional banner or I wanted to add in additional images, well, I simply just click and drag, and I can drag that component anywhere I want to on the screen. And it's placed down like a little placeholder, this little purple dotted line box. Now, the way that I look at this is like building blocks. If you've worked with Legos or Duplo, Duplo is probably a stretch. We've maybe played with that when we were like 3 or 4. Legos are the new Duplo. All right, awkward thing of the webinar. But when you place it down, it gives you another placeholder that you can double click on and then customize. So I can go out and, well, we found a couple of my Halloween photoshopped images there. This is my new recent headshot. I can click that, upload it right there, click OK. And now maybe this is what I want my speaker image to be, or maybe I have 2 speakers. I simply drag the element out, place it on the page, and then it becomes an element of the page itself. Now I can add everything that I want to from downloadable files. So maybe I want to put all of my handouts available to my users on this page right here. Well, from this download icon, I can just drag it out, click on it, and just like I did before, I can click on some assets. Let's go to my documents, not my images anymore there. And I can add in, let's say, right here, I've got a executive PowerPoint that I was using. That's going to upload in a matter of seconds here. Once it's uploaded to this page, anytime that you go out to this event site, you can click on it, you can download it directly to your computer. So again, these pages are highly customizable. You can make them look and feel however you want and make it look as close to your own personal website if that's really where you're linking them out from. Now I've got, while that's loading up, Hazel asked a question. Any chance Adobe Connect might develop a student's note pod they could use to take notes during a session so they don't have to go elsewhere? That's actually a great question. Now Hazel, reach out to us afterwards. We might have a custom pod that you could use. I'm not sure if it's an individual notes yet. We might have to double check on that for you. But we'll call this PowerPoint. But there might be an option for you just in a custom pod if you don't know what custom pods are. Now, Georgette asks, is there a way to link an event to, for instance, or do we need to export it manually? I'm going to assume that's your another custom software that you work with. You should be able to integrate this with any other softwares through the APIs and SDKs that are out there. So again, that's going to be a more technical question I won't be able to answer on this webinar, but yes. basically when we talk about this, it can really be integrated with any other systems that you guys want through those APIs and SDKs. Now, Monica asks, how do you remove blocks if you don't want to use them and are already in the template? To remove blocks that you don't want, Monica, right-click on any of them, click delete, click yes, they're gone. You can do that for anything. If I don't want a banner image up at the top, I can delete those as well if I want to. So those are the integration with the other Adobe tools. One other thing I'll show you guys in a little bit is the reports, and that's really where we get the integration through SiteCat. So let me actually click here. What makes Adobe Connect module the best? Well, I've already talked about the event registration pages and how they can be customized. Show the events catalog to show the email showcase, and the custom user. So the last two that we have before we get into best practices here. So one thing that you can also do is not only can you customize the way that these landing pages look, you can completely customize the user interface inside of these Adobe Connect rooms. So right here, the room that we were in earlier where I was showing you that engagement dashboard is an Adobe Connect room that I was using a couple weeks ago. Again, this was our first response room for Hurricane Matthew that was going through Florida and South Carolina, Georgia, all of that different area. And this is how I was making an example of how different agencies use Adobe Connect for instances such as this. And now the UI of this interface is completely customizable. In the most basic terms that I like to get people to think about it, this UI is kind of like using your desktop computer. Everything that you see on the screen, these 4 different windows, we actually call pods inside of Adobe Connect. That's just our terminology for apps or applications that can be loaded into the room to customize the experience that you want to have. So with all of these pods on the screen, I can move them around. I can simply resize them by clicking and dragging on the screen, either move them up, down, diagonally, any which way a chess piece can actually move. I can click on the wrong layout and shift everything around before I want to. I can create some screen real estate up here at the top. Click on my pods menu, which when I think about my pods menu, I think about it like my start bar on my computer. It's just a quick way where I can load in applications that I want to use on my desktop. Just here, it's using it inside of Adobe Connect. And I can go down and I can click on things like my live stream. Loads up exactly into that negative space, and now I can be on a webcam inside of my room, although there's too many of me that you're looking at right now, so we'll go ahead and we'll hide that. Because any of the pods on the screen, you can actually hide from view. They don't delete from the room. They actually just go right back up to your pods menu. So if you have ever been on a webcast like I have before and you accidentally had one of your co-hosts hide that, well, then you're in luck because you can always add it back in at any time. But if I'm setting up for a webinar, I'm probably not going to set up my interface kind of like this. I am actually going to change it up very similar to the way that Brittany and Joel set up this room today. The first thing that I would do is I'd take my attendees list over here, bring it back here. This just allows me to anonymize the session that we're in. So now all of you in my room have no idea who else is in this room unless you were using the chat pod earlier. So I can, again, name a few names. Logan, I think Trisha was in there, and a couple other people were chatting with me about movies that were recently coming out. So that's another way where you can find out who's in the room. But this is what I would typically do. I'd set my room up something like this where I'd have a pod over here to communicate, some notes down here, and then keep all of this in the backstage area so I can collaborate with my other co-hosts. So again, completely customizable UI of the room. You are controlling the interface that your users see. Now, when we talk about customizing the UI, a lot of people, when they first start with Connect, tend to just use one layout. That's what actually this configuration of pods is called. This is actually known as a layout inside of Adobe Connect. And what I've seen people do when they're new to Connect is they go, oh, well, we're doing a different activity. Let me load in that new activity here really quickly, and they'll actually set it up with a live audience. Now, for you guys as an audience, that's your first indication to go, hey, I'm going to Facebook, or I'm checking email while he's taking about 2 to 3 minutes to shift everything around. And we do not want to do that inside of our rooms. So a unique feature to Connect that you're not really going to see in a lot of other softwares in this space is the ability to build customizable layouts. Now that's this bar over here on the right-hand side. that allows me to quickly configure my room for multiple instances. So if I was jumping between topics or speakers while I'm customizing my room, I simply can have that up and ready to go at any time. So if I want to switch things up, I simply click a button, the room transforms, loads stuff in, takes stuff away for me. Now I've got a couple other questions. Courtney asks, does it matter if we use this for 3-week-long training versus a single event? Courtney, it actually doesn't really matter if you use it for a 3-week-long training or a single event. You actually get to set up the time frame in how long your events are actually going to run. So you can set it up for a week, 3 weeks, or just a single hour if you want to for a single day. Can you remove added pods, i.e. when you don't need them anymore? Renee, yes. Basically, all you do is click hide, or you can have a completely separate layout to remove those pods automatically and add in the pods that you do want. It's actually a great way to do it. I believe these guys, MeetingOne, have a recording of a layouts webinar that we did, I believe it was last year. So Renee, if you are looking for some information on that, I believe these guys can pass that over to you, unless they were planning on doing that again. So might have to talk to them after this webinar here. All right, so the final thing I want to talk to you guys about events before we get into some best practice tips and tricks is reporting and analytics. So we kind of summarize everything that we've done. We've built an entire microsite. It's a microsite that really generated a lot of interest around a topic, and we got those users to sign up for this event itself. Once they signed up, they got all of those automated notifications and reminders to come to our event. Now, come time of the event, you popped into one of my Adobe Connect rooms that was fully customized for the event that we were running. We had all of these interactive features. You guys looked at the content, and then our event finished and wrapped up, and you got our email follow-ups. Now, for me, as the person who put this event on, I want to get all of the information around this event. So up here, I have a summary tab that allows me to pull the reports 4 different ways for my individual events here. So I can see aggregated data around my event, the number of people who have registered, compared it to the number of people who attended. I can see graphical interpretations of the data. So I can see things like, hey, how many people looked at that actual landing page? And out of those people, what percentage actually made it to the speaker page, to the registration page? How many people filled out registration? How many people logged in? So you can actually see that natural tapering effect right here, or get really hungry for Jolly Ranchers if you see that similar thing to me right here. But you can see how that tapers down over time as people are filling out your event registration. But there's a report right here that pretty much stands alone as the most important report that you'll get inside of an event. This has every touch point you had around a user. So when I open this up, and I will do my best not to give out any email addresses here, what this does is it pulls in all of their names, their login data. I can see the date that they registered. I can also see their attendance data, so I can see if they attended or not, their login, logout times, and their duration in the event itself. Now, for those campaign IDs, I can see which campaign ID they actually came from. Now, right here, I have all of their registration questions. I can see right from this how they filled out those registrations. And I can see for me, I was the test over here, so I can see I just put a bunch of T's. That would be an indicator of me trying to lock down registration with those validation types. But over here, I have all of their polling question data. So if you remembered, you guys filled out 2 polling questions at the very beginning. This spreadsheet compiles that together so I can cross-reference it with any of the other information that you've provided. Now also, towards the end, I can see any questions that you asked in the Q&A pod. So if I left any questions unanswered, I could go back and follow up with you guys offline. I can see any files that you downloaded from my file share pod. I can even see if you logged in from any social media accounts. So I'm actually able to see all of this data. Again, I think this is the most valuable report that you'll get out of this, and it's not even the first report that I'm going to be showing you guys today. Now, this is just the first aggregated data page. It's kind of your summary page. I can actually break that down a little bit further into registration. This right here is a registration report. It actually shows me all of the campaign IDs, and I can cross-reference each of the campaigns that I was running to see which campaign was the most effective. Again, email was okay, but my web-based campaign really didn't do so hot. So next time around, I spend a little bit more effort in bumping up my email campaign, getting more users to come from that specific location than anywhere else. Now down here at the bottom, I actually have registration question reports. This one perplexed me at first, but it actually makes total sense in why it's incorporated into the reports that it can pull. What this looks at is it looks at number of attempts per each registration question. So when you have people getting to that registration page and they start to fill it out, it actually calculates the number of attempts. And now, as you can see here, I have 126 to 127 people that attempted these questions. But if you remember, on the previous page, I had 96 people register. So at some point in time, 30 people dropped off. They either found too many of these questions required or personal and they didn't want to provide that information, so they just decided, I'm not coming to that event. I can see that taper off. Or it could be other reasons. They got pulled to lunch and had to re-sign into the page. But this gives me a good sense of going, hey, no one really likes filling out this question. It might be preventing 30 people from coming to my event. Let's switch that up a little bit. Now finally, the content report. Going back to that engagement dashboard, if you guys wanted to see that in a more holistic view of your overall webinar, there it is. And it's actually compared to the attendance of your webinar. So you can see right around here, minute 40, I probably did too much lecture. I bored the heck out of people at this point. I wouldn't say bored the heck because it is still about a 60%, but I don't want to flat line at all in a webinar. I want these to spike up as much as possible. So right now, I might switch things up. I might do a collaborative exercise, or I might do something with some engaging pods, which hopefully we'll have time to do in a little bit. I think I'm talking a little too much. And we have reports on chat, Q&A usage, file download activity, as well as polling activity inside of the room. So if you like graphs and reports, events is the module for you guys. You basically can take all of these, use this data, compare it to other events that you run, and optimize them as you move forward so you can have the most effective marketing campaign, but also be the most effective person when you deliver webinars. It pretty much gives you a holistic view of how everything has run inside of your event there. Now, I know we wanted to switch things up and talk more about best practice tips to give you guys some tips and tricks inside of our webinar session. But I see that Kathleen has asked the question, where can I get a list of pods available for the events module? Well, Kathleen, if you're looking at custom pods or just the pods in general inside of the room, these are pretty much all of the ones that come in the events module or any of the other modules. The one that's different that you need events for is the engagement dashboard. That's the only pod that's probably not going to come with a typical meeting room. So if you are just using the meeting room itself and wonder why you don't have that engagement dashboard, that's probably because you don't have the events module. But let's actually switch up, talk about some best practice tips in the next 16 minutes. So I'm going to get through this pretty quickly. All right, question, VoIP versus landline. The first thing people always ask me when they're trying to choose Adobe Connect and what is right for them. VoIP is great. VoIP basically just uses your network to broadcast the audio. You do need something such as this guy right here. If you do want to do VoIP, I highly recommend getting a headset. The only issue with VoIP is it's based on your own bandwidth. So if your friend is out in Fargo, North Dakota and doesn't have the best connectivity, they might not be the best candidate for VoIP because their audio might come in a little bit like that. I try to do my best breaking up voice when it comes to that. But what happens is you can actually use a landline. Landlines are completely independent from the internet network that you're using or your Ethernet there, and they're a more solid connection. Now, what I like about the landline versus VoIP is actually the control that we have in the audio in the room today. You guys may have noticed when you came into the room, a box popped up for you, and it asked you for your telephone number. The system called out to you. You picked up, pressed 1, and you were connected to our audio bridge. However, a majority of you guys in our room today are not listening over the phone. You're listening over the computer speakers. With the MeetingOne conference line that you guys are all dialed into, this is an option. It broadcasts over both, so you give people the flexibility and the option to really listen however they want to and interact however they want to with you. So it's actually a really great way to save on bandwidth, give a much richer audio experience to your users, and give them the flexibility to listen over VoIP and landline at the same time. So I will always typically recommend landline unless you guys don't use phones at all, and then VoIP is the only option that you guys have. Now, another best practice tip is actually something that I like to show people nowadays because it is a new feature that has been added into Connect that some people haven't fully utilized yet. So recently in Connect, they've added the ability for recording meetings to download your recordings not only as FLVs, which is how they were originally, you can actually download your recordings as MP4s now. So I have a demo room here with a bunch of recordings in it. I've got a bunch of recordings in it right here. Now, if I wanted to download this recording, I can actually click Actions and click Make Offline. Now, the recording loads up for me, and when it does so, it actually gives me some options into downloading this recording. I have the ability to choose whether I want it to be an FLV, MP4. Now, MP4 is pretty much more standard. You're going to find a lot of players play MP4s rather than FLVs. So this will give you a lot of flexibility for your user base if they're going to be downloading this recording from you. You can actually control the quality of the recording as well. So if you're trying to make it for a more mobile-focused community, you can actually make it in a mobile format. Or if you want it, you can have it, where'd it go? Disappearing on me. You can have it in a HD or full HD format. And they've actually done this. They've added in all of these bandwidth controls for you. So you can actually set the resolution, quality, frames per second profile for the audio. So you actually have more granular control on how your recordings are going to be downloaded here. So that's actually a great tip. If you guys are not doing it yet, you can download your recordings as MP4s. Now, let's see what our next best practice tip is. This is another big one here. It is one I always get asked when it comes to webinars, and that is chat versus Q&A. So you guys noticed at the very beginning, if you were some of the few that popped into our room today, that got in here earlier, we are using the chat pod, but right now we are using the Q&A pod. Now, they're both very similar in the way that they interact. They both allow you guys a voice inside of my room. They allow you to chat with me. The difference between them is chat is public. Anyone can say anything that they want to in the chat pod, and when it comes to webinars of this size, I'm going to have questions come in like this, and I'm going to have other people or myself trying to answer them like this. And in the midst of trying to answer all these questions, I also have other people's comments coming in. So it can be very chaotic to try and organize the conversation of a large audience inside of the chat pod. It's great for smaller groups and it's great for small group discussion, but for a larger group such as yourself, that's where Q&A comes in, because it allows us to moderate the conversation that has been going on inside of the room. When you guys ask a question, and Tim, I just saw your question come in, I will get to that in a second, that actually goes to us as the facilitators, the hosts of this session, and we can do a couple things with this question. One, we could delete it. If we don't want to answer your question, we'll delete it. We will not do that. We actually answer all the questions that come in. But I can go down here, and I can type that answer out. Now, I can submit that answer either privately to just you, or I can submit it publicly to everyone inside of the room. So when that happens, indicates that it's been answered. And then if we go back here, you can actually see the question and answer grouped together. So if someone has a similar question, well, they can actually see what I said around that. Both of them can be exported, and they can be downloaded to your computer. Either or is great. I just find from my own personal experience, chat is great for small groups. Q&A is great for larger groups. But if you want to use both, tip and trick for you, just double click on the title bar of the pod, go comments here, and then double click on Q&A and go questions here. That way you can give everyone a voice and they can chat with each other, and then they can stick to answering or asking their questions over in the Q&A pod. So a lot of different ways that you guys can do this. Now, I did see Tim's question. When I go to enable basic reports in the analytics administration on my account, the message says this action will impact your Adobe Connect events data. How will my event data be impacted? It won't delete anything, would it? No, Tim, it will actually not delete anything for you, but what I'd actually recommend, reach out to me after. That's something I would have to double check for you. I don't think that will impact anything or delete any of your existing data, but again, that's a more technical question I would want to get back to you on. Al, is it possible to add the add-in diagnostic on the landing page? Yes, Al, completely possible. Basically, all you do is you add that link to that landing page. Anyone signing up for your event can have a little small message at the bottom that says, download the add-in here before coming to your event. So that is customizable. Now, The next one, and before we wrap up here, is webinar facilitators. This is actually a great service that can be done inside of your room. Now, the more basic way to look at it is people that are going to help you out on the back end. Right now, there's a large number of you in the room, and I am just one man, and I have a great team helping me. I've got a couple people back here. You might not know it, but I've got Brittany, Joel, Abby, and Christine all helping me run this webinar right now. What I call them is I call them my webinar facilitators. They are people that are assigning questions or answering questions to help me out. They are people that put together my polling questions and just moderate the room for me while I present, because it's kind of hard to divide my focus to do both things, to run the show and to also manage the show at the same time. If you've ever been to a Broadway show, you know that there's not just one man backstage, there's a bunch of people backstage. And that's actually a service MeetingOne provides. So if you guys are interested in having a team help and support you on your larger webinars, that is something that you can reach out to them and check out. They do a great job because I didn't put this room together because it was their room, but they are keeping me in line, communicating with me, and helping me answer questions, so I do have to appreciate that. So round of applause to those 4 people on the back end helping me out. All right, we are in the home stretch, guys. 2 things, pods to encourage engagement and ending the session. Now, I've been kind of talking about this a lot in today's session, pods to encourage engagement. Well, there's a lot inside of the room. You have everything from chat pods and Q&A pods, file download pods, polling pods, but there's a couple other pods that you can actually use to inspire engagement inside of the room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch us up here and take you into a layout with a bunch of pods that you can use to engage with your audience. The title of the word cloud pod in the bottom left will be favorite pizza topping. And I'll open this up and I'll generate that. So right down there in the below my face, well, I'll actually get on webcam here, right here is a word cloud. This is actually something known as a custom pod. There's a website, I believe we linked it out already, where you can download a bunch of different pods, from maps to games to something like this, that allows you to collaborate with your audience. Now I can see, based on this word cloud, how big the words pop up, what the percentage of inside the room is. So I can see cheese, I can see Canadian bacon, I can see pineapple is actually big there, pepperoni, we got mushrooms, I'm going to assume blue cheese, artichokes. I warned the team here I was going to use a food one because I know everyone loves food. But what we have over here is some poll pods in 3 different ways. I have a multiple choice question. So what did you prefer to have lunch today? Pizza, taco, salad, sandwich, ice cream. 3 people in the room said ice cream. I'm going to have to question your dietary habits there. Over to the right of that, we do have our multiple choice poll pod. So you guys can actually select multiple different countries that you would like to visit, just not one. And then right below that other poll pod, you have our fill-in-the-blank polling question. So what is the name of your pet? Wow, we've got some interesting names in here. Toby, Oliver, Asia, Lucky, Nala, Rose, Peanut, and Snickers. That's actually an awesome name. Well, again, I'm kind of hungry. So any food name, pet food related names, I'm going to definitely love there. And also the chat pod. So again, if you heard me talking about the chat pod earlier, great way where people can engage with people. Type 1 for ice cream. Yeah, I can see that Logan's trying to start some stuff inside of the room there. So again, great ways where people can interact with us. And these are just a small sample size of the stuff that you guys can engage with. So let's see what the winner is. If we were ordering pizza for the 18% of you that wanted pizza, I believe we would be getting a pepperoni, mushroom, cheese, and pineapple pizza. So hopefully the people that are voting want that type of pizza there. All right, final thing here. I know, Clarissa, it's making me hungry too, and I think I'm going to lunch after this. So if you're in the Nova area, I think I'm going to go get pizza. Final thing here, guys, before we wrap up our session, is the appropriate way to end a webinar. This is actually something that I like to show people in a lot of my trainings, because what people will do in this box down here is when they end a webinar, they just click the X up in the top right. And you're not really supposed to do that because it doesn't shut the room down. What you'll want to do to end a session when you're completely done running your training is go up to your meetings tab up here and click End Meeting. This will shut everything down. It will click everyone out of the room, and it will turn off your audio bridge so you're not using any of the audio minutes that you might have linked to your account. But what's nice about this box right here is that you can type a message going, hey guys, thank you for attending. Our next session will come up at such and such date and time, or if you want more information, please contact this user. But below that, I can actually have a link open up on everyone's computer. So if I wanted to take you out to a survey page or take you out to my events catalog, so where you can sign up for my other events, well, what I would do here is I would go and I grab my events catalog, and I'll shut this down so I can show you guys this. Click paste here. So when I click OK, room shuts down, events catalog opens up. Now you're like, oh, I've got all these other offerings that I can go out to. And it's a great way to promote a lot of your other events there. So I hope you guys got a lot out of today's session. It was a lot of information. I didn't realize how much I could talk. Now, we got about 3 minutes left here, and I do want to take us into our wrap-up. So, guys, I want to let you know that we are offering some takeaway information down there. We've got events checklists. We've got the layouts, helpful PDFs. So you guys curious about building layouts, customizable layouts in your room, that is a great one. And then we have some links for some upcoming webinars and other information down there. But what I do want to let you guys know about is if you're interested in more about Adobe Connect, right over there, we do have a live session going on now. This is something where you can get a demo of anything that you want to inside of the Adobe Connect platform. Join in, ask any questions that you want to about the platform. We're more than happy to show you anything that you want. But of course, you can always reach out to us for a more personalized demo. We're happy to sit down with you one-on-one and then basically listen to your use case, what you have already and what you're looking to do, and tailor that demonstration to show you the most pertinent features for you. Now, I'm going to hang back and answer any other questions that might have come in for me. But guys, thank you again for attending our webinar today. I do appreciate all of you coming out, telling me your favorite pizza toppings and dog names. So other than that, guys, take care and have a great rest of your day.